in his brain, and most importantly, he had evidence of a hydrocephalus clear back in 2009, and let me talk about the hydrocephalus and.
Okay, let me make sure we get the whole list, though. These are preceding brain problems from his pre-collision, true?
Yeah.
Are we showing this, whatever this exhibit is, to the witness and having him read off of that?
No.
He's not reading off of it, but please turn it around. It's a different topic.
Go ahead.
So
that was not a prop. That was getting ready to show it, but we'll go on.
Yeah. Okay. Restate.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I heard you say, with regard to pre-collision brain problems that the plaintiff had: stroke, microvascular disease, hydrocephalus. Any others?
Not that showed up on the MRI of his brain in '09.
He had a history of migraines. Is that something you'd put under that list or not?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I didn't even
Strike.
I couldn't hear. Just
move
okay.
to strike the answer.
Motion granted.
I didn't even know what his answer was going to be, by the way. I'm just trying to get this list together. But you said you want to talk about hydrocephalus. What is that word?
Hydrocephalus is too much pressure, or a condition called normal pressure hydrocephalus, which is equally kind of devastating.
Dumb it down for me. Does hydro mean water?
Yes.
What does cephalus mean?
Brain.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Water on the brain.
and then this is very confusing. Normal pressure hydrocephalus is not a normal condition. Is that true?
Not at all.
Overruled?
It's. I mean, when I see the word normal in a diagnosis, I think, oh, that's normal. But in this case, normal pressure hydrocephalus is or is not a good condition.
So it is a well-recognized medical condition that is degenerative in nature, meaning it gets worse with time. About only 1 in 500 people between the age 60 and 70 have this, and it gets
Ahead or what? You tell
so.
me.
It specifically means that there is too much fluid in the ventricles of the brain.
And what's a ventricle again?
Fluid filled cavities that feed the spinal column and eventually get resorbed by the body.
And you said it's progressive. Just comment on that. So let's say there were no ski accident.
14 years since that initial MRI. So that's quite a bit of time. I would expect symptoms to crop up like loss of a memory, like trouble with balance.
Okay. Let's move on to microvascular disease. By the way, I want to know if these things are related. If someone has the hydrocephalus like Mr. Sanderson, does he also have to have microvascular disease?
No.
All right. And do you believe the microvascular Go ahead.
So a stroke of the central retinal artery is a harbinger of future strokes. Vascular disease.
So microvascular. Micro means small. Is that right?
Yes.
Vascular means like blood flow?
Yes.
All right, so small blood flow. So in lay terms,
Yes.
Sustained?
I'm trying to get to the most like 8th grade level, which is what I understand.
Yeah.
So comment on Mr. Sanderson's pre-collision brain as it related to microvascular disease, please.
So 2 points. So some microvascular disease can cause very small stroke, which are not able to be detected by scans, MRI, CT. Also, number 2, microvascular disease is a great risk factor for a future stroke.
Do you believe this, is this your opinion, all symptoms the plaintiff claims is explained not by the collision, but by his pre-accident conditions? I'm trying to get his opinion out there, Your Honor.
You can ask what his opinion is.
Yeah. Sustained.
Okay, comment on your opinion on that issue, on the issue of his current claims as it relates to his pre-accident conditions.
More likely than not scenario. In this 76-year-old brain now, concussion symptoms should only last for 1 to 3 months. Is a wide berth of evidence that when the concussion symptoms last for longer than 3 months, it's highly correlated with monetary gains or litigation.
Explain that, please. Monetary gains or litigation. Go ahead. What's your point? And relate it, please, directly to Mr. Sanderson.
Your Honor, this goes beyond the scope of his expert report.
Could you approach, please? Question sustained?
Strike the answer too.
And the answer, question and answer will be stricken, and the jury is ordered to disregard it.
Comment, would you, on the patient's pre-existing anxiety?
He has been medicated for a number of years for depression and anxiety.
And do you believe those things play a role in his current condition?
Absolutely.
And just comment on that, would you?
So, also, when symptoms of concussion last for 3 months or longer, anxiety and depression and other psychiatric conditions are the likely cause of that prolongation.
The last sentence?
Uh,
I missed the last word, I'm sorry.
Prolongation.
Prolongation.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining that. Can you just comment just a little further about that? What do you, say it a different way for me, would you?
Yeah. A concussion should last no more than 3 months. When the symptoms of concussion last longer than 3 months, you start looking for, and this is highly correlated with underlying depression, anxiety, and other psychiatric conditions.
One thing you noted in your report was plaintiff has a history of seeking medical attention at an abnormal rate, 72 times in 10 years. Is that your opinion?
Leading.
Sustained?
Well, comment on how frequently Mr. Sanderson went to his doctors in the 10 years prior to the collision.
So I did note that he had an extensive history of seeking two things. One, either he has many medical issues before the collision, or symptoms.
And that's pre-collision we're talking about?
Yes.
Just as a part of aging, did he note a decline in his mental or physical activity acuity level?
So, what's interesting is within 1 month of the collision, he went to his own family doctor and said, I feel like I'm getting old.
This is within 1 month before, correct?
Yes.
And did he say, I'm having a hard time doing the things I've always done?
Yes.
Leading.
Overruled.
And why was he feeling that way? Do we know?
I
Sustained?
Well, using your medical opinion, I'm just wondering, what does that tell you as a reviewing medical expert?
Foundation.
Overruled?
Go ahead. I'm getting old and I can't do what I used to do. Go ahead.
Overruled? Go ahead.
So I have had many patients of his age say the same thing. Yes. And so the brain is an organ, just like any other organ. With time, it accrues conditions, problems, just like any other organ. The plaintiff had evidence, including objective evidence on MRI and things like that of these disease processes before the clinician.
Okay. And this was the stroke workup. Is that where he had the imaging
Yeah.
before? And do you know of any of their plaintiffs' experts who actually did they? Did any of the plaintiffs' experts review the imaging to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
And if we're trying to figure out, hey, what's this guy's brain like before and what's this guy's brain like after, it would be nice to put those side to side, wouldn't it? And actually compare?
It would. Yes.
All right, let's just talk about aging. Have you seen? May I show him a document, Your Honor, before I publish it?
Sure.
Have you seen Defense Exhibit 103 and 103B?
I have.
And does that appear to be a true and correct summary of Mr. Sanderson's health before the incident?
It does.
Okay, and Your Honor, I move to publish it.
Any objection?
We object, Your Honor. It's what we've talked about before. There's irrelevant medical information there.
I'm about to establish the relevance.
If he hasn't established it yet.
Illustrate their testimony.
Is this okay for a minute?
Sure.
Binder right in front of you. Do you have a defense binder?
Yeah.
May I approach? Oh, can you see it right here?
Yes.
Oh, the monitor. It threw us the first week that the monitor wasn't working. Can we do the first third? All right. Can you see that okay, Doctor?
Yes.
Talking about thinks he's gotten old all of a sudden, not doing things he used to do.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
And then, let's say that big. Then, blind in right eye, were you familiar with that?
I was.
And severely impaired in the other. Did you see that in his medical records?
I did.
did you see evidence that he walked into walls before the incident?
Yes.
He would ask people standing on the right side of his field of vision to move so that he could see them. Did you see that in the evidence?
Yes.
One of the reasons he retired was because he had a stroke event that deprived his eye of oxygen, impacting his vision. Did you observe that in the evidence?
Yes.
If we're gonna go through all these, it's gonna be leading, Your Honor, every time.
Overruled.
He adjusted his skiing to one side of the slope to try to avoid hitting others in his blind spot. Did you observe that?
Yes.
He had to be picky about what days he skied to avoid days with lighting that would further limit his depth perception. Do you agree? Did you see that in the evidence?
Yes.
By the way, I mean, if I close one eye, do I have depth perception? Is it still three? Comment on that. Is it still three-dimensional or is it now two-dimensional?
You don't
The
have.
scope of his expertise.
Overruled.
Okay, so I'm closing one. Just comment very briefly.
Well, you have basically. Depth perception will be severely impaired.
It's not like it was cured, true?
Yeah.
And he is severely hearing impaired. Did you see that in the record?
Yes.
He has difficulty hearing higher frequency sounds like a woman's voice. Did you see that?
Yes.
Hearing loss is severe. Did you see that?
Yes.
Heart palpitations. Did you see reference to that?
Yes.
And he was on two heart medicines, just prior to the ski collision. Are those high blood pressure issues separate from the palpitations?
So they can be related to the heart. They can be related to anxiety.
Okay. Do you have an opinion one way or the other?
So I cannot speculate.
Okay, Mr. Sanderson is 76 years.
We all are.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Decreasing. Did you note that he had that prior to the ski collision?
So I read it on the report. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Some more than others. Can be caused by a number of factors.
Okay. Comment on Mr. Sanderson, please. What do we know? Why did he have that before the ski collision?
We don't.
Speculation.
That's
We
why
don't know
I'm
why
asking.
he had it before.
I'm
Oh,
asking.
oh.
It's a vague symptom finding, and it could be caused by a number of things. Commonly, people who drink alcohol excessively commonly have brain atrophy, but there are a number of other causes.
Did you see any evidence in the VA record that he sometimes drinks more than 6 drinks a night?
I did.
And did you see the advice from his providers was, don't do that anymore.
I did.
We want you to abstain from alcohol. Yes?
Overruled.
I did see that. Yes.
So mild, moderate, severe, are those sort of the 3 categories?
Yes. And that's referring to the MRI in 2009.
Retinal artery occlusion, we talked about that, that's the eye thing. And clotting in arteries delivering blood to brain. Is there anything you want to comment that you haven't talked about on that issue, number 9?
No, I don't
And
think so.
depression, you've talked about that. Anything more you want to say about it?
Depression and anxiety.
Okay. If he says, since the ski collision, I've had more depression and anxiety than I did before.
So, any symptoms past 3 months, I would attribute to multiple factors, not at the accident.
Okay, migraine we've talked about. Let's going now, starting on 1.
I did.
Did you see reference to a foot drop that he, at least for a time, he actually was dragging his foot?
I did.
Weakness in his back and spine,
Yes.
loss of sensation. Did you see that?
Yes.
And just general back pain. Did you see
Yes.
that? Knee injury, yes.
Yes.
And that was actually from a ski collision. Do you recall this? Not a collision, a ski accident. And hamstring injury, right torn hamstring.
Yes.
Osteoarthritis, did you see that?
Yes. And is the osteoarthritis in the neck region, which would make moving your head side to side kind of painful or difficult. That, along with the vision impairment, are, I think, relevant.
All right. My partners here are telling me I should wind up. Can you at least look at insomnia, respiratory problems, poor male sexual reproductive health, lower urinary tract issues, kidney problems, hypercholesterolemia, weight gain, and restless legs? Are those all conditions you saw in his pre-collision medical records?
Yeah.
And why are these things important when we're
so-
talking about aging?
It is a long list. Some of these conditions are more relevant than others,
Fair
but
enough.
the some indicates that he is 76, and with 76-year-olds, sometimes I have multiple medical conditions like this.
And these were all pre-collision events, right? Pre-collision conditions.
Yes.
And what does that tell you in terms of his aging? Like at 69.
Well, so like I said before, we all are.
Aging.
Yes, and so in terms of the brain as an organ, we talk about brain reserve, and we talk about cognitive reserve. Brain reserve tends to go down and down, starting at around age 25. It goes down faster with time and aging.
Okay.
Cognitive reserve indicates that the patient's ability to cope, adapt, be resilient, and find effective workarounds for that brain decline, which we all are undergoing at various stages.
Let me conclude here. They're about to stand up and criticize you for not personally meeting with the patient. Did you personally meet with Mr. Sanderson?
No.
And what did his actual treating providers at the University of Utah, or excuse me, the VA, Veterans Administration people, what did they show on all their
meet and examine the plaintiff because I think it would be a kind of a condescending to him and also to me to go over a totally normal physical exam as the medical doctors at the VA had well documented records.
and they documented high, average to superior in essentially all categories.
Sustained.
Can you comment on their findings in terms of some kind of graph?
So I think you're referring to the neuropsych test.
Correct. Just give us, and then I'm sitting down. Give us a couple, 2 sentences on that, would you?
So a neuropsych test is really like an MRI of the actual mind and its function.
And what was it as to Mr. Sanderson after the collision?
He had 3 neuropsych tests, and it was superior to above average.
Thank you.
And
Those are all my questions. Thanks.
We'll take a short recess right now. Thank you. You can step down. We'll take about a 10-minute break. 10 minutes.
Judge, while the jury is not here, may I mention an issue?
Yeah, have them stop at the door. Go ahead, Mr. Owens.
So after this witness, there are 3 witnesses who haven't been able to testify, and so they're gonna testify by deposition. Are they ready to go on Carrie Oaks? Cause we withdrew that one, but we wanna know, are they ready to go?
We can be ready.
And,
Yes.
and are you reading our parts too?
I don't know what your parts are, but.
We handed them.
Yeah, we got them about 15 minutes ago.
Right, it's just a matter of reading them, though. I just need to know, because otherwise,
We wanted to play video of ours.
But, you know, if the court wants us to read them, we'll read them.
Your Honor, we can't, Dr. Fong's video, as you know, took quite a while. We don't have that time if they wanna call Carrie Oaks and rest. So,
Our video is 15 minutes.
no, but we're entitled to our talking too, so
Can
can
they
we
do
do it
theirs
on
on their
paper,
own?
Your Honor?
What was the last question? I didn't
Can
hear.
we just do it all on paper, the reading back and forth? We don't have time to review their
Mr.
video.
Sykes, are you fine with reading the deposition?
You know, Lawrence,
Actually, Kristen Van Orman is talking with James right now about it.
Right, but we're talking about like, we're going live here.
Right, and we've handed this to us, 15 minutes. Kristen?
I did not, but as I understand, Kristen is
We're-
amenable to reading it.
We're
is
trying to
that
get
correct?
Dr. Bain,
They-
we'll go along with that if we can get Dr. Bain, but I'm not sure we can even get Dr. Bain except for.
Get Kristen in here, would you?
2:00 for sure tomorrow afternoon.
All right, well, let's finish with this witness, and in the meantime, maybe it'll sort itself out. If not, I'll have to make a decision.
I'm trying to contact Dr. Bain right now.
Okay. Let's have the jury come in. Mr. Sorensen?
Dr. Edgley, thank you for being with us today, and you've overcome a great deal to be able to be so accomplished, and we appreciate that. I'm going to go through a few questions pretty quickly, and I just ask if you wouldn't mind answering them yes or no, because they should be yes or no questions, and I think we can move this process along. Is it true, or is it the case that you're paid $500 an hour for records review and $700 an hour?
Information, and that is correct. That there is an opportunity cost by my not being at my regular practice. I'm not here for money. I get paid to offset the opportunity cost by my not being at my regular clinical practice.
Gotcha. So that is yes, though, those numbers are correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And is it true that, and as defense counsel pointed out, you did not ever meet with or see Terry Sanderson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you were paid to review records and do sort of a forensic records analysis, correct?
Yes.
We went over what you had reviewed in preparation to give and offer your opinions, and I didn't see that you ever reviewed the records of Dr. Boehm. Is that correct?
I don't think they were ever given to me.
Okay, so that is correct. You did not review them.
I don't think so.
Okay. What about the records of Dr. Wendell Gibby?
Yes,
You did review them, or
Yes.
you did not?
I did review the devastation of Dr. Gibby.
Okay. That was not on the list of things that you said you relied on for your opinion. Are you aware of that?
No, I was not.
Okay. So is it your position that you did rely on some of Dr. Gibby's records to formulate the opinions you've offered so far?
So I did rely on the opinions of Dr. Gibby, yes.
Okay. And I did also not see that you ever reviewed the deposition of Whitney Smith, the EMT that we've heard from in this case. Is that correct?
I think that's correct.
Nor did I see that you reviewed the deposition of Carlene Davidson. Is that correct?
Who is she?
She's the plaintiff's former girlfriend that's offered testimony in this case.
So I did review her deposition.
Okay. And what about the man named Craig Ramone? Did you ever review his deposition?
Yes.
Okay. Neither of those last two were on the list of things that you say you rely on, so you were in fact partially relying on them for your opinions?
Yes.
Okay. I think we already covered it, but you did a forensic document review in this case, is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And in a nutshell, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you offered 5 main opinions in your expert report that you provided to us, is that correct? Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. Your first opinion that defense counsel went through with you is that compelling evidence indicates that plaintiff's concussion was mild and that he lost consciousness only momentarily, if at all. Is that your opinion?
Yes.
So you do believe that there's a chance he did lose consciousness?
And there is a chance, but more likely than not, no loss of consciousness. I have not seen any compelling evidence to formulate otherwise.
When you say compelling evidence, you're stepping into the place of the jury to weigh evidence, isn't that correct? Is that a yes or a no?
That's argumentative.
Sustained. When you weigh the number one opinion that you have that you've offered in this case, and you say that it wasn't compelling, is that because you weighed evidence?
I read, poured over many reports, many which and I'm left to wonder, did he actually lose consciousness or not? I don't know. I would say more likely than not, the answer is no.
Okay. And for the reasons that you gave when defense attorneys were asking you questions, that's why you say that it was more likely than not that he did not lose consciousness.
Yes.
Okay, do you need to have a loss of consciousness in order to sustain a concussion?
No.
Into the actual definition of what unconscious means.
I don't think so.
So all of those that are in your specialty would say that a loss of consciousness involves, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but lifeless and limp is the way you put it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if we've heard testimony before this, still be somewhat awake, just disoriented or not alert, that's not correct.
That's disorientation, not loss of consciousness.
Okay. Is it possible that the amnesia that you talked about with defense counsel is or could account for Terry Sanderson's inconsistent testimony about how long he may or may not have lost consciousness?
Yes.
So that is a very real possibility in this case.
Yeah, actually, you cannot comment on
What they had seen?
Yes.
Okay. We've heard some testimony earlier about a triggering event. Are you aware of things that could be considered a triggering event?
The concept, yes.
Okay. Is a triggering event?
No.
Okay. Is NPH caused by a triggering event?
No.
Okay. Can the presence of NPH exacerbate a concussion or the symptoms of it?
It can in theory, but only for a brief period of a time. Brief meaning weeks to months.
Okay.
Not certainly not 7 years.
Okay. And the jury's heard a lot of testimony about a condition called PCS or post-concussive symptoms. Are you aware of that condition?
Yes.
So is it your testimony that the presence of NPH could not be a risk factor in possibly leading to PCS?
Let me back up. So, you should be aware if you're not already that the DSM-5, which is the list of psychiatric conditions, the fifth and most current edition says that if a concussion lasts more than 3 months, look for other causes, and I believe that they have totally eliminated PCS from their diagnostic manual.
So, and I don't want to misstate the answer you just gave me, but is it your opinion then that PCS and NPH are not related at all then?
You're asking me to state a categorical answer. Yes. No. I cannot say that there is no small, association.
Okay, so when Dr. Bain, for instance, testifies that it's rare, but PCS can occur after the occurrence of a concussion, is that accurate testimony?
I would like to, so I have an issue with the term PCS because I don't think it's, so whereas it was a valid condition, it's not, at least in the psychiatric world, it's not recognized as a condition now.
Okay, so, and maybe I inartfully asked the question, but essentially, if I hear what you're asking, or what your response was, and again, I don't want to restate for you, but you're coming at this from a psychiatric perspective where PCS might be more of a clinical or medical diagnosis? Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Can anxiety and depression be risk factors for possibly having PCS?
Again, I take issue with the term PSCS, post-concussion syndrome.
Okay, what about, and I think we're talking about the same things, but I believe I'm talking about post-concussion symptoms, and I don't know that they refer to it as syndrome anymore. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about post-concussion symptoms, we can have a dialogue. Yes.
Okay. And maybe that's my fault for misstating it before. I'll ask you the same question then. Can NPH be a risk factor for post-concussion?
Is a chronic degenerative disease that is likely exacerbated by a number of things. The immediate aftermath of concussion being one of them. But more likely, much more likely than not, the concussion symptoms would have long, years ago gone away, and what we're left with is a brain that has NPH, microvascular disease, history of stroke, and is 76.
Okay. And you said history of stroke. I want to make sure the jury's clear. Mr. Sanderson had a stroke-like event in his eye. Is that what you're referring to when you say stroke?
Let me be clear to the jury. So the American Stroke and Heart Association considers a retinal artery occlusion as a stroke event. Yes. Not a stroke-like event, a stroke.
Okay, but there's no scans, and you've poured over many in this case, that show any sort of brain bleed or any issues besides the MPH and other issues that we've talked about that would be related to that stroke event. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you read anywhere in the medical records that you poured over that he had any sort of NPH symptomology before the ski crash in 2016?
NPH symptoms are insidious at onset.
Okay, and what are those? I think they're called the triads sometimes. What are the three main symptoms of NPH?
So this is a very layman's way of explaining it, but you have cognitive deficits. Imbalance, and that can lead to falls. And you have urinary incontinence, loss of the function of holding urine in your bladder.
So just to recap, the triad is memory issues, ataxia, and then incontinence is typically how that's diagnosed, correct?
Yes.
The ski crash in 2016, correct?
Before 2009.
And what were those symptoms that you read?
Well, no, before 2009, that's correct. But yet it was commented on the MRI of 2009. And given that those symptoms are insidious in their onset, happening over years, maybe decades. 14 years later, I'm not at all surprised to find the plaintiff experiencing memory and loss of balance issues.
Okay. Did you review any of the MRIs taken of his brain in 2017 after the collision?
Yes.
And did those
commented on it. I don't know if the scan showed worsening.
Okay, so you don't know one way or another if it worsened or not, but they did mention that that condition was present.
Yes, and that NPH is a clinical diagnosis verified by radiology findings.
But nobody had diagnosed his NPH before as having the triad that we talked about before. Correct?
I did not see any mention. Yes.
Okay. And you were asked a lot about the plaintiff's medical conditions. We had a board up here. We had a whole list here. Did you read anywhere in the depositions that you reviewed that any of the laundry list of medical issues that the plaintiff may or may not have had before the event kept him from being a world traveler or on the go or even skiing that day?
The fact that 3 weeks earlier, he said to his primary care physician, "I feel like I'm getting old." That is most likely based on, as you said it, that laundry list of conditions. They're taxing. They're no one condition is that problematic, but the complication of those various conditions do weigh on a person both physically and psychologically.
Sure. But then if do you account for their accounts of what happened with their dad directly after the ski crash in 2016?
I'm not going to make the claim that there was not a transient decrease of function up to 3 months. But beyond 3 months of time, what decline he had was more likely than not already the ball was already rolling.
Okay. You testified earlier that you've been an expert in many cases that have gone on to litigation. Do you remember when you testified of that?
Yes.
Have any of those cases been ski crash cases?
No.
Okay. So this is your first ski crash related expert testimony.
Yes. Confabulation means making information up.
And it's not just lying per se, right? It's not just you're grabbing it out of thin air. There's a little bit more of a clinical definition for it. Isn't that correct?
I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, it's not just confabulation is an actual medical condition. It's not just creating lies, correct?
It can be related to a medical condition, yes.
Is it often seen in situations where people have had a brain injury?
Yes.
Okay. So inconsistent testimony by the plaintiff may be attributable to confabulation if his story is to be believed that he has a TBI.
So to point that symptom, confabulation, to the brain, alleged brain injury, sure, it's possible, but plenty of other things could account for that symptom of confabulation.
Sure, but it is possible, as you just said, correct?
Yes.
And from the 2009 to the last scan that you saw, and I don't know when that was, probably the 2017 scan. Have you seen any of his symptoms, the symptomology that you reviewed earlier, getting progressively worse from an actual imaging standpoint?
No, but we're talking about clinical diagnoses backed up, only backed up by
Than it was in those early scans in 2009.
nor would I necessarily expect to.
Do you know what the medical term discordant means?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't often use that.
Okay. And what does it mean?
Well, it means loosely that things don't make sense and don't add up.
Okay. You've been asked a lot about Mr. Sanderson's medical records and radiology reports that you reviewed. I'm going to show this first page of Plaintiff's Exhibit 6 to the jury. Do you see this radiology report right here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to zoom in here for all of us, and I've
move up to avoid the address on the bottom.
sorry about that. Do you read that that paragraph that starts with the word findings? Do you see that? Right there.
Demonstration of a prominent ventricular system discordant with mild cerebral volume loss and sulcal prominence.
Now, you have the degrees and I don't. So, does that mean that the prominent ventricular system, the issue with that volume loss was sulcal prominence? Is that what that means?
Suppose to get into the brain of the neuroradiologist, but that is a valid conclusion. So
That's my layman's approach of reading a medical record, and I recognize you have that, and I respect your position. But the medical records that you reviewed, isn't that correct?
I think we're talking about two separate things: the enlarged ventricles, and as a separate issue.
And short of going well beyond both of our expertise and sounding more like an idiot than I'm sure I already do, I think we'll leave that one there. But these aging conditions that you describe, is it also within the possibility of medical certainty that you've offered your opinions that Terry Sanderson's condition could be in fact related to post-concussive symptoms?
That is not what the medical literature shows, but so I would say much more likely than not.
But it is possible, correct?
As far as anything is possible, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just check with co-counsel, and I think that's everything I have for you. So if other witnesses reported massive changes directly after this ski crash in 2016, would you also attribute those massive immediate changes to the aging process?
Restate
Girlfriends and daughters report massive changes in the plaintiff after the ski crash of 2016. Would you also attribute their discussion of those massive changes to regular aging?
This is a complex question. He had distress over very real rib fractures. He had psychological and physical symptoms that do influence, a patient's global functioning. Rib fractures heal. Bumps and bruises heal. What we're left with long term, so I don't disagree with the fact that people around the plaintiffs said that there were big changes in his physical and psychological function immediately after the injury. But there was brain-related issues should have resolved within weeks to a few months. And what we're left with is a 69-year-old at the time brain with multiple problems.
Sure. But looking over the medical history like you did, you see that Terry Sanderson continued to try to seek treatment for something that was going on that he
That medical attention seeking behavior started before and evidence by his primary care physician visit the 3 weeks earlier, and that was likely a ball that was already ruling.
So he was interested in his health before the ski crash. You've testified to that, correct?
Yes.
So he would be very interested in anything that he viewed to be very acutely changed. Isn't that also correct?
Yes.
So it would be part of that pattern to continue going to the doctor a lot up until you think that you're going to get some sort of resolution of your symptoms. Isn't that correct?
I don't suppose to know what was going on in the plaintiff's mind.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate it. Out from the back here. Last question. What do you perceive to be Terry's life expectancy going forward?
I have no information to base a opinion on that.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'm going to read you what you told me your opinions are on redirect or on direct, and then I want you to tell me if anything has changed as a result of cross-examination. The compelling evidence is that plaintiff's concussion was mild and that he lost consciousness only momentarily, if at all. Is that still your opinion?
Yes.
Plaintiff's post-collision neuropsychological evaluation shows no evidence of impairment. Is that still your opinion?
It is.
Are related to the ski collision.
At this point, yes.
Another way of saying that is all current symptoms are explained by his pre-collision aging and degenerative diseases.
Overruled?
Much more likely than not, yes.
Then you were asked about a new word. Confabulation, like lying. You were asked about that, right?
Yes.
Did you review the deposition of Jenny Sanderson, the daughter?
Yes.
Did you observe she said that her dad would, in fact,
Beyond the
That's
scope.
not an evidence.
No, that's not an evidence.
it is,
Jenny Sanders is not an evidence.
Yeah. Overruled?
and that he seeks attention, and that the notoriety of this case makes him feel powerful. Did you read that?
I did.
And on our little break, you said it's outrageous. You said something was outrageous, that they would assert something. What, do you remember what it was? His current conditions are related to the ski collision.
What's
Am I throwing you?
the neuropsych evidence and the psychiatric evidence have long evidence to support that when a concussion like this alleged concussion lasts over months, there is a high concordance rate with the patient being involved in litigation and also media attention. Both
Beyond the scope of his proffer test.
of which are hyper real in this case.
Hyper real means what?
Very real. Very real.
What is hyper real? I missed it.
So it's just a colloquial
Colloquial term.
for extremely, so extremely real.
What is again extreme?
Litigation and the factors of the media attention around
Is hyper real. What are they doing to him about his current symptomology?
well, so
I'm trying to understand his response, Your Honor.
Overruled, it goes to the weight.
You gotta dumb it down for me.
that is ever televised in Utah makes it hyper real.
In what way to Mr. Sanderson? What is that doing to him, those facts?
Foundation, Your Honor.
I'm just trying to understand his
Could you,
comment.
maybe you could go into a little bit more of the background behind this opinion?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the point you're making, and then what it's based on. So you're saying this very litigation and the media attention is impacting Mr. Sanderson. Is that your opinion?
Overruled as a preface to the question?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then how?
So the litigation, so a lot of money is in play here.
And how is that affecting Mr. Sanderson's symptoms?
Foundation, Your Honor. He can't
Sustained?
So I'm being told to sit down. Have a nice day.
Mr. Sorensen?
Just one question for you, Doctor. Is hyperreal a medical term?
No.
Okay, so that's has no basis in any sort of
Extremely relevant.
Okay, but again, you never conducted your own psychological evaluation of the plaintiff, correct?
No.
Okay, so that would be pure speculation about his motives or anything like that.
Based on a number of studies and meta-analysis of cases similar to this.
So case studies, but nothing directly attributable or applicable to Dr.
That
Sanderson.
case studies So meta-analysis of actual things that are in the medical literature.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, you may step down. Thank you. You ready for your next witness, or should we take our last break?
Your Honor, definitely let's take our last break.
Okay, we'll take a short recess. Short recess, thank you. I can see that.
Together. We've come up with a plan for Carrie Oaks.
Good,
I guess I'm gonna be Carrie Oaks.
okay.
We just have to figure out who on our side is going to read the questions. Because there's only one additional question that was added by Wayne Owens, we're just gonna have the same lawyer read all of the questions, and I'll respond as Carrie Oaks.
So Noreen could do it.
That's what I had asked.
You good?
Questions? Or
Sure.
Bob would-
So I have the hard copy. Are there any objections?
I don't think there are on the mark.
Okay, I'll follow along if you'll
Yeah.
key me in on where you're at.
If there's some, like, objection calls for speculation, but I think we're good with that.
Your Honor? We don't know this yet, but we would like to propose that to hit Dr. Bain, and if it's okay with the court, that we have him testify at 9 or even 8:30, 8:45 Thursday morning. Propose it if it's not a. This week is his wedding. He had an emergency medical procedure.
Is his web?
About 3 or 4 months ago that he couldn't do his, attend trial, and so,
Well, I'm not sure when your rebuttal case is, but if that's when your rebuttal case is, that's fine. We can come a little early
So,
on Thursday. If that's not when you're,
deal with this at 5.
Yeah, we can do
I'm
it.
not in the
time of the questions that they asked.
well, the
So
thing is,
apparently there's one question for the defense and the rest of it's for the plaintiff.
an hour, 45 minutes of additional questions.
So we didn't call her, we didn't want her.
You had designated her as a witness, and we only wanted 15 minutes. If you want to.
Yeah, so this is not going to take us 45 minutes to read the portions we've designated.
So let's go ahead and change questioners depending on which side has asked for that question, and then I'll be able to keep track.
It's literally, Your Honor, I would say their time is probably 5 minutes of the 15.
Total. Are you fine with 5 minutes? Okay. Then 5 minutes of the time will go to the defense and the rest will go to the plaintiffs.
That's good. That's,
Okay, I wasn't involved in theirs.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
okay.
quick matter, Your Honor.
Let's wait for the other side.
Would you like me to go get them, Your Honor?
Yes.
Or is, okay. I'll
Yes,
be right
please. Thank you. Are we on the record?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're back on the record. Council are present and parties are present. Mr. Owens?
Yes, thanks. So we're thinking this Carrie Oaks is going to go about a half hour, and then we're trying to figure out how to best use that other half hour.
Sure.
One option is, well, are you keeping us to like 4 hours each left?
Strict.
Strict.
So when you run out of time, you're done.
Okay, so,
And I'm trying to be mindful of the jury.
so depending how much time is left, then we'll call Terry Sanders back to the stage, back to the pulpit.
We talking tomorrow?
No, if we have time
Oh,
before
tonight.
5.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Ready for the jury?
I assume that you'll explain to the jury what we're doing.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to go ahead and take your seat?
Yes,
Okay.
sure. Do you swear me in?
That you'll read? No, I think not. The lawyers will point out any errors in your reading.
It's better than swearing at you.
What page are we starting on?
So,
We are starting.
the funny thing.
Okay.
And we're gonna try and, say, if you jump to the next page, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Because it does jump.
Right. Thank you. And who's doing the questioning, Ms. Abarama? Okay.
Use your deepest voice.
I can do without the commentary.
Don't make objections.
Thank you. You may be wondering why Ms. Van Orman is seated as a witness. We are now going to read a deposition, old school style. So the witness name is Terry Oaks.
Carrie,
K-
K-E-R-I.
Thank you for that correction. It's listed two ways in here. Carrie Oaks, and the person that will be reading Carrie Oaks' part is Ms. Kristen Van Orman, and the questioner will be Ms. Abarama. You may proceed, starting on page 6.
Judge, would you like me to state the page number and the line number?
I think if you, right now, just, whenever you skip areas, tell me where you're going.
Okay.
And
will
probably
do.
just the
otherwise you-
page, don't need to do the lines.
Will
Yeah.
do. All right, starting on page 6. Good morning, Miss Oakes. Could you spell your name for the record?
Yes, it's Keri, and Oaks is Oaks.
And do you know about what year you started working at Deer Valley?
It's page 12, Your Honor. 1990. Actually, that was about that area, give or take a couple of years.
Page 16. Okay, when we talk about the incident or the ski collision or the ski crash or similar words, let's just agree right now that we're talking about the incident that occurred on February 26, 2016, involving Gwyneth Paltrow and my client, Terry Sanderson. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, now I would like to go through some of the parties to this case. Do you know my client, Terry Sanderson?
Not beyond seeing him on the hill that day.
Okay, have you had any other contact with him prior to that or subsequent?
Where I spoke with him or no?
Okay, what about Gwyneth Paltrow? How long have you, or before this incident, do you know Gwyneth Paltrow?
That may have been the first time that I skied with her family. I don't recall exactly how many days I skied with them.
Page 18. Okay, 1 or 2 ski trips you've skied with Gwyneth Paltrow, correct?
Correct.
Sorry, if you could speak up.
Correct.
Okay, what about Brad Falchuk? Do you know who he is?
Yes.
Did you ski with him on the ski trip that involved this ski crash?
In what capacity?
I mean, did you meet him?
Yes, we met him.
Okay, and I understand you were teaching primarily one of the children with some of the children. Is that correct?
Not his children.
Okay, whose children were you teaching?
Gwyneth's.
And who are they?
Apple is specifically who I was with.
Okay, and were all of the ski trips with Brad Falchuk and Miss Paltrow's children? They were all on the trips with Gwyneth Paltrow, correct?
Correct.
You didn't ski with Brad Falchuk or the children on the trips where Miss Paltrow was not there, correct?
Correct.
Did you know who Greg Ramon is?
No.
Do you know who Eric Christensen is?
Yes.
How do you know Eric?
Through Deer Valley, we work together.
How long have you known Eric?
Since, I don't know the exact amount of years, but most of the time that I've been an employee here, I've known him.
Page 31. What did you discuss on the day of the collision with Eric Christensen?
In particular? What in particular?
Anything about the collision with Miss Paltrow and my client, Terry Sanderson?
A relief that everybody was safe.
And who was everybody?
Everybody, meaning both people who collided.
Miss Paltrow and Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Page 53. So just before the ski collision, please describe what was happening. Had you all met at the top of Flagstaff Mountain, for example?
Yes, we got off the chairlift, decided that we were going to go down to lunch, and...
Can I interrupt? When you say we got off the chairlift, who is we again? Just so we're clear.
The we would have been Gwyneth, Apple, and I were on the chairlift. I believe that Eric was with Moses. Down already, having the table for lunch, so we decided to go ski down Bandana to the Empire Lodge for lunch. Then as we started skiing down Bandana, it was not crowded at all. There was really nobody on the run. And Moses and Apple wanted their mom to watch them, wanted to do the side of the run, and she could see them ski. So we stopped to cross the run. The run was clear. There was nobody in front. It stands out in my mind because that's a rarity. There was really no one in sight, except farther up by a slow sign from where we were. And we crossed, made 2 turns, and then I heard the sound and looked over, and that's when I saw that they had collided, and we were both on the snow.
What was the sound you heard?
Just I heard her voice, and that's what caught my attention.
So I want to just go back over this slowly.
No, you just go to 56. Oh, sorry.
You inserted a word inadvertently.
I apologize. Then I heard the sound and looked over, and that's when saw that they had collided and were both on the snow. Go ahead and just read the rest of the page, that's fine.
Over this slowly. You started skiing down Bandana without Apple and Moses, correct?
I'm sorry, which page?
Still on 55.
Okay.
You want to ask that one more time?
Sure. So I You said you crossed the run. Was that near the top of the run?
Near the top of the run.
When you say you crossed the run, does that mean you went skiers left?
Yes, we were on skiers right, and then we had slowed down, or actually, I believe we might have even stopped enough that we were in a group. And then I looked uphill before we crossed, just to make sure it was safe, and then the kids and Eric and I crossed the run.
To the left?
To the left, to skiers left.
And were Eric and you above Apple and Moses when you did this?
He was behind. He was above hill, and I was more to the side and a little above hill.
And then what happened after you started crossing to the left?
We crossed to the left and started skiing down the side, and then we heard, after, as I said, 2, maybe 3 times, heard the sound of, it was more Gwyneth sounded surprised.
Started to cross to the left. Did Miss Paltrow then go straight down to the right? Is that what she did?
She stayed on the right, but she did not go straight.
Were you able to see her while you were watching Apple and Moses?
Yes, I was able to see her.
How was she skiing?
She skis small, radius turns, consistent speed. At this point in time, it was slow because she wanted to be able to see the kids. They were not skiing fast because the kids are not fast.
Was she then going to stop and look up, or was she going to look to the left? Do you know?
She was not going to stop because we were skiing.
Okay. Is it your understanding Miss Paltrow was going to look to the left while she was skiing to her children skiing?
No, I cannot say what she was going to do. They were in her sight, and the goal was to ski down to the lodge for lunch.
When did the topic of Miss Paltrow watching her children come up?
Watching her children ski.
Excuse me. When did the topic of Miss Paltrow watching her children ski come up?
Took them to the side. It wasn't a detailed plan on how she was going to watch. It was just a plan to ski down to the lodge.
Okay, and when Eric, Moses, Apple, and you started skiing to the left, was Miss Paltrow skiing on the right?
Correct. She was skiing on the right.
Page 68. Was Miss Paltrow agitated?
When she was first getting up, because she was very surprised and shocked, because that was her comment, was that he hit her.
What was her comment?
Her comment was that she was hit and was frustrated, but then as she got up and she checked on him. He checked on her. Everybody was quite calm. Nobody was agitated or yelling.
When did she ski off, Miss Paltrow?
I don't recall exactly. I believe she was there for most of the time, and yeah, she was there for most of the time. I think that when it was verbalized that everybody was okay, Mr. Sanderson verbalized to us that he was okay, he was fine, and that was his response to her checking. We checked. Ski Patrol checked. And so then at that point in time, that's when we said, okay, let's start. We can start dispersing because everyone expressed and we were acting as if they were just fine. It was just a collision, no harm, no foul.
And earlier you mentioned that Mr. Sanderson got up. Do you recall anyone helping him get up?
We were there, both Eric and I were there to help him. I don't recall that he didn't need us to lift him off the snow. I don't recall needing to give much assistance, but we were there for both parties to help them both and make sure they were both okay to our ability to check themselves.
Page 71. And why didn't you write an incident report that day?
Because nobody and it was, again, like just any other incident where people, got tangled up and everybody was okay and everybody left. And so.
Page 82. Did Gwyneth Paltrow say she didn't see Terry Sanderson before the collision?
She did not use that. I mean, he wasn't in front of her, so he was not in front of her, but she didn't use that phrase. She said, "He hit me."
You're assuming she was in front of him, correct?
I saw that there was nobody in front of her when we were skiing, and so that's not an assumption. There was nobody on the hill with us in our immediate vicinity.
Page 106. Miss Oakes, just before the collision, Gwyneth Paltrow's children, Moses and Apple, wanted her to watch them skiing, correct?
Yes, we were skiing together down the final run down to lunch.
Miss Paltrow was skiing down to the right, looking up at her children to see them skiing, correct?
She was skiing down on the right side. Her children were in her periphery.
Can you orient me one more time to what page we're on?
Sure, now we're on page 107, starting on line 14. So she was looking over at the kids to see them ski.
I can't say exactly where she was looking. They were in her periphery. She could see them while looking ahead to ski.
So Miss Paltrow was distracted, looking at her children while she was skiing just before the collision.
I would not say, well, I can't say that she was looking ahead at the run in front of her.
Was she also looking at her children skiing?
I did not see her looking at her children.
So Miss Paltrow was distracted when the collision occurred, looking at her children, correct?
She's not looking at her children when I saw her. She was looking ahead, skiing down.
So she wasn't watching her children. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't. They were in her periphery. I don't know what she was looking at directly. I don't know that she was looking at them directly. She was looking ahead where she was skiing when I saw her.
At the moment of the collision, though, you had not seen her for 3 to 5 seconds, correct?
Probably 3 to 5 seconds.
So you don't know where she was looking, other than she was supposed to be looking at her children, right?
I don't know exactly where, that she was looking directly at them. I do know that when parents ski with their kids, it doesn't mean their eyes are glued on their kids. They can glance at them. They can see them in their periphery. And as long as the kids know the parents are there and they're in their visual, that's what the kids want. I don't know exactly what she was doing. The children were satisfied.
Moses and Apple wanted their mother, Gwyneth Paltrow, to watch them ski down Bandana, correct?
That's what they had said. Watch us ski this, Mom. Okay, that was the conversation.
Page 111. Okay, and then maybe you already answered this, but in that, when you last saw Miss Paltrow, the 3 to 5 seconds before the scream, did you observe whether there was anyone below her on the ski hill?
I observed that the area in the front of her was empty.
I think that's it. 111.
And that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
May I be excused, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you.
But subject to recall, right?
Right. Mr. Owens, you may call your next witness.
Thanks, Your Honor. Could we have a quick bench conference here?
Yes. Okay, the parties have stipulated a fact, and it looks like it will save us some time. Mr. Brad Falchuk, who may or may not testify later, depending on how much time there is left in the case, the parties have stipulated that he would testify from the defense. Did the court correctly?
I believe so.
Okay.
He may or may not be called if there is time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so we'll now move to the defendants have a deposition to read.
Yes, we're going to try to get to the two kids' depositions. First,
Are we reading the entire deposition or marked
no,
parts?
the marked version, Moses. So we're calling Peter as a fake Moses to the stand.
Okay. So
Steve,
Peter will read
do I have a
Moses.
marked copy? I don't think I have a marked copy. I've given you my marked copies, but I haven't gotten back.
And I'd like the lawyers to each read their side of the questioning so that we can capture the minutes used by each side.
I just need to get my copies back that I gave to them.
What if we, because we don't have two marked copies because we're doing this on the fly, what if we have, we'll read Apple, Moses, all the marked part, and you read Apple, all the marked part.
That's fine.
Let's do this.
Oh, that's right. That's right, they're not.
Actually, we're gonna share a copy.
You know what? You better keep it. Yeah, just in case.
Okay, this is kind of weird, but I'm the questioner and you're Moses.
Correct.
Do you recall how old you are at the time?
You need to start, tell us what pages though, please.
Thank you, page 7.
Let's just make sure that's where we're starting. Yes, page 7.
Line 22. Do you recall how old were at the time?
9.
Okay, I'm turning the page.
You need to clarify that for me.
We're going to back up because there's some gray. Could you just spell your name for the record?
Protected identity.
Okay, so we all stipulate this is Moses Martin. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And I'm going to pick up where I was. Do you recall how old you were at the time?
9.
Okay, and you recall this ski trip in February of 2016, correct?
Yes.
About 4.5 years ago, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you recall skiing that morning that your mother was involved in this ski collision, correct?
Yes.
I'm now turning the page to page 9 at the bottom. Okay. When this ski collision occurred, do you recall where you were at the moment the ski collision occurred?
I do not recall where I was at the moment it occurred.
Did you see the ski collision?
I did not see the actual collision.
Okay, so let's just start maybe at the beginning of the run. You got off a chairlift, correct?
Yes.
And the run is called Bandana. Are you familiar with the Bandana run?
Yes.
Okay, at the time of the collision, did you, or just before the collision occurred, you were skiing from the top, is that correct?
Yes.
And who were you skiing with?
From what I recall, my instructor, Eric. Page 11.
Page 11, line 22. And you were skiing with Eric as your ski instructor just before the collision, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall who else was skiing with you at that time?
No.
Was your sister A.M.? Could she have been below you?
Yes.
You don't recall seeing your sister?
Not exactly, no. And briefly seeing the collision. And then he skied over and I followed him. And I saw my mother and a person behind her that he had crashed. Who had crashed?
Okay, did you hear a noise before the collision?
No.
And the person behind her, was that a man?
Yes.
Moving to the top of page 13, was this person uphill from your mother?
Yes.
How close were they, your mother and this other man?
As I recall, decently close.
Let's just say, this close, see my hands, they're about a foot, about 14 inches apart, or were they further apart?
I think something like that.
Above her skis, so her head was uphill and her skis were downhill?
Yes.
And the man that was nearby her, where his head where was his head in relation to hers or to his body? Was his head uphill or downhill?
Uphill.
So I'm just going to go back a little bit. So when did you first realize your mom was involved in a collision? How did you
realized that it was my mom. So I was standing around. I realized that it was my mother.
And did you hear a noise that told you there was something going on, a commotion or anything?
When I skied over, I heard my mom yelling at the guy.
What was she saying?
She was saying something along the lines of, "What the F word? You just ran into me."
And anything else that you recall at that moment?
No.
Was she standing up when she said that?
I do not fully remember, but I believe she was on the ground lying down.
Okay, did she get up by herself?
I do not remember.
I'm just going to go back in slow motion to, let's say, 3 seconds before this collision occurred. You were skiing with Eric. If you're facing downward, skier's left is on the left side and skier's right is on the right side. Do you know which side you were on the hill just before this collision occurred?
I was on the left side.
Do you know how far on the left you were?
No.
Do you think that...
But farish.
Okay. Were you closer to the left edge of the ski hill?
I believe so, yes.
And do you recall anyone else on the hill at that moment?
I do not remember.
Were there other skiers on the hill?
Yes.
About how many?
I'm not sure.
And so, what made you ski over to your mother? Did someone tell you?
I was following my instructor, but I did not know what was going on.
So you followed your instructor over to where your mother and this other man were lying down, correct?
Yes.
That scene, your mother and this man laying down, what else do you recall?
I recall skiing over, seeing a few people around them. I remember my instructor seeing what was happening. And then I remember my mom on the ground downhill of the man that was uphill from her. And I recall that they were both on the ground at the time that I skied over.
About how far away do you think they were?
I do not recall. About a foot, maybe?
I'm asking how far apart your mother and the man were when you skied over there.
I'd say a foot, maybe more.
Were they touching?
I do not remember.
And do you remember your mother getting up?
Yes, but not for a while.
Okay, how long was a while? Like, 5 or 10 seconds?
I'd say 2 minutes, maybe.
And how did she get up?
I do not remember.
Did she get up by herself?
I do not remember.
Did someone help her?
I do not remember.
Do you recall a large man next to the ski collision location?
I do not remember.
You said there were some other people there. What do you remember?
I remember seeing a few people, not a lot, but maybe 3 people, not including my instructor.
So there was your mother, the man that was involved in the collision, and then there was your instructor. Were there any other people?
I believe so.
How many other people do you think?
I do not recall.
Like, was there 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 maybe?
I do not recall.
And then what did you do after you skied down to your mother?
I stood there wondering what was going on, and then I believe that afterwards we went to eat lunch.
I remember it. And who is we?
As I remember, it was being me and my instructor, and I'm not sure whether my mother came down afterwards or with us.
So you skied down with your instructor to the bottom
Yes,
of the hill?
to lunch.
So you skied down the hill with your instructor, Eric Christensen?
Yes,
Anyone else ski down with you?
I do not remember.
Just before the collision, your sister was somewhere in the area skiing with you?
I believe so.
Anyone else in the area?
I don't remember.
Do you recall Apple's ski instructor?
No,
Do you recall her being present, the ski instructor for Apple?
I don't remember.
Do you remember Apple's ski instructor's name being Carrie Oakes? Carrie?
I believe so.
So was anything said when you came down to the collision site where your mother and this man were?
My mother said to the guy, "What the F word, you just ran into me."
And then anything else that you recall?
Not that I recall.
Were people talking?
I believe so.
Was the man talking?
I do not remember.
When I say the man, I mean the man that was involved on the ground or the snow next to your mother. I think it should be on the snow next to your mother, correct?
What do you...
When I say the man next to your mother, the person that was involved in the ski collision.
Yes.
So that's...
I do not remember if he was talking or not.
Okay, do you remember if your ski instructor, Eric Christensen, was talking?
I do. I don't have a closer memory on that, no.
Did anyone besides your mother say that they had seen the collision?
I do not remember. I do not remember.
Do you remember talking about the ski collision at the bottom of the hill?
Vaguely.
What do you recall?
My mother saying that she got hit or ran into.
You said you went to lunch afterwards, correct?
Yes,
Did you discuss the ski collision at lunch?
I believe so.
What do you recall?
Not much.
Who was at lunch with you after the ski collision?
Oh, the only people that I remember are my sister, my instructor, and my mother.
Since the day of the collision, have you talked about the ski collision with anyone? Anyone else you've talked to about the ski collision?
I don't remember.
Do you think you might have talked about it with some other people?
I don't remember.
I'm now on page 25. When you skied down to the collision site, before you left, did you notice any ski patrol or medical people come by?
I do not recall.
Do you recall any other people in green uniforms at the collision site besides your ski instructor?
I do not remember.
Before the ski collision, do you recall saying something to the effect of, "Hey, watch me ski"?
No.
Have you ever said something like that?
No.
After the collision, this is bottom of page 26, after the collision, when you were watching your mom and this man on the ground, did Eric appear angry?
Not at all.
Why are you so sure? It seems like your memory's a little faded in some areas, which is okay and understandable, but I want to know why you're so sure about this.
Because I remember him addressing the situation very calmly. He tried to help everybody get out of the situation safely, and yes.
Do you remember anything specifically he said?
Not specifically.
I think plaintiff's counsel, Lawrence, asked you some questions about, they were sort of vague about what have you seen? Said, hey, watch me ski. Maybe a better way to put this question. Have you ever told your mom, hey, Mom, watch this, before you decide to do something on your skis, if you'd like her to watch you ski?
I do not recall saying things along the lines of that.
Did Eric help your mother stand up?
I do not remember.
Do you remember Eric helping up the man that was involved in the collision?
I do not remember.
Do you remember skiing down with Eric after you left the ski site?
I don't know if it was exactly Eric, but I did ski down alone. I did not ski down alone.
Okay, how close were you to Eric as you skied down towards your mother when you realized there was some commotion or incident?
Close. I skied close.
Two?
I do not exactly remember. My best guess would be somewhere along the lines of 2 or 3 minutes.
So you were standing there about 2 or 3 minutes, you think?
I think so.
That completes the questioning, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may call your next witness.
Do you want to play Apple and you ask the question?
They're going to read another deposition of Apple.
Is that okay with you guys if
That's
they
fine.
just do it?
Yeah. Just let us know the pages, because remember, I don't have a fully marked copy.
Thank you.
Can you just spell your name for the record, please? And your last name?
Protected identity.
Okay, you understand that this is a lawsuit involving a ski collision at Deer Valley on February 26th, 2000.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, page 12, line 3. Okay, and do you recall this event back in February 26th, 2016?
Yes.
Okay, how old were you back in 2016? Were you
11. No, 12.
about 11 or 12?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, what was your skiing ability at the time?
Intermediate. Beginner.
Okay.
Somewhere in between.
About how many times have you skied approximately for this date in February of 2016?
4 times.
Page 15, line 10. Okay, and do you remember your ski instructors on that trip?
Yes, we had Carrie, Preston, and then my brother's instructor, who I can't remember the name of, and one more female instructor that I also cannot remember the name of.
Page 16, line 7. Okay, that morning, do you remember skiing with which instructor?
Carrie.
Okay, and your brother was skiing with another male instructor, I think you said, correct?
Yes.
I'll just represent to you that his name is probably Eric Christensen. Does that refresh your memory?
Yes.
17, first line. Okay, so do you recall that the morning of February 26, 2016, when you were skiing with Eric and Moses and
Yes.
Carrie, where had you been skiing that morning before the incident with my client?
We were on the mountain
Carrie.
at the hotel, and that we were at. It was a ski in, ski out type of thing. We were mainly on the greens and blues.
Do you know about how many runs you had skied before the incident?
5 or 6, I'd say.
And were you skiing with Carrie that whole time?
Yes.
Was your mother skiing with you at the same time?
Yes.
Did your mother ever ski different runs when you were skiing with Carrie?
I don't remember.
Okay, your brother Moses, about what level is he as a skier?
Beginner?
Okay, now I'd like to go to the bottom before the ski collision that's subject of this case, okay?
Okay.
So, you were at the top of the ski hill, and I believe the run is Bandana. Do you recall the name of the run?
Yes, it was Bandana.
And why do you know it was named Bandana?
It was our favorite run.
Page 19. And you remembered the ski run because it's your favorite run, correct?
It was, yes.
And it was also the run you go down to the hotel you were staying at.
Yes.
Okay, next I'm going to ask you what you recall happening on that run, but before, do you recall this ski collision?
I did not see it, but I recall the events following it.
Okay, well, what was going on during the time just before the ski collision?
We were on our way to lunch at the lodge.
And who were you with?
I was with my instructor, my brother, my stepfather, my mother, my step-siblings, and their instructors. But we were all a bit scattered on the run, so some of us were in front, others were trailing behind a bit more.
And who was with your group?
I was ahead with my instructor, my stepsister, and her instructor.
Was Brad Falchuk with you?
No.
Sorry, that's page 20. So, just to clarify, at the time of the collision, there was you, Carrie Oakes, your ski instructor. There was IF, and then there was IF's instructor, who we don't know whose name yet. And then there was also your brother's instructor, Eric Christensen. And then there was your brother, Moses, correct?
Yes, but I was not with Moses and Eric. They were a little up the run. I was closer to the lodge at the time.
21. About how far away were you from your brother Moses, as you recall, just before the collision?
I would say I don't really know how to say it. I was further down the run. They were in the middle of the run. I was towards the end with my stepsister. I was not with Moses or my mother.
And did you know when the collision occurred?
Not the exact time, no.
Did you hear something before the collision?
I don't remember.
Did you hear a scream?
I did hear some commotion, but I was further down, so I decided to continue to go down to the lodge.
Okay, so when you heard the commotion, is that what you think is the collision?
Yes.
And when you heard that commotion, did you look anywhere?
I don't remember.
Did you see your mother after you heard? A couple of seconds after the collision. So only about 5 seconds of time. So you heard something, a commotion, right?
Yes.
And then did you see anything?
I don't recall if I had seen anything or not. I think that I did, but I don't remember.
Okay. And when you heard that commotion, you're with Carrie Oakes, your ski instructor, right?
Yes.
And where was she in relation to you? Was she above you or below you?
I believe she would have been in front of me. That is usually how we skied. She would lead me.
We're on 23 now. Okay, so the 5 seconds around the commotion that you believe was the collision, you were with Carrie Oakes and IF, and then the 3 seconds afterwards, what did you do at that point?
We continued to ski down to lunch.
And did you know at that time that there was a ski collision?
No.
When did you first learn that there was a ski collision?
When my mom had arrived at lunch after we had gotten there, about 5 minutes after.
And how did you learn about the ski collision?
My mom told me. She told us what happened.
What did she say?
She said she came in and I noticed that she looked a bit shocked, and I asked what had happened, and she said, "This a-hole ran into me. He ran right into my back." And I remember she did this motion saying that he ran into her back, and they both went down. But I remembered that's what she said.
24. So let's go back to the moment of the collision or the commotion. You heard the commotion. You didn't see the collision, but you continued to ski down.
Yes.
Did Carrie Oakes ski with you?
I believe so, yes.
And she skied with you down to the bottom.
Down to where we were eating, yes.
Okay, and when I say the bottom, I mean the bottom of Bandana Run, which is where the lodges and the
Yes.
eating places are. Is that clear?
Yes.
And so right after the commotion, Carrie Oaks, IF, and you skied down to the bottom of the Bandana Run, correct?
Yes.
And who is at the bottom of the run when you got there?
I don't remember. I just know that we were meeting everybody to eat.
Okay, I'm sorry to keep going back to the commotion. Did you see anyone else on the ski run at the time of the commotion?
Well, there were other people skiing, but again, I didn't really pay attention to what had happened. I just heard some sort of screaming going on above me, but I continued to ski down, and I don't remember if I turned around or not.
Okay, did you recognize the screaming? Whose voice was it?
It sounded like a
How soon after you got to the bottom did your mother arrive?
I would say 5 to 10 minutes.
So you were waiting for her at the bottom?
Yes.
And what about Brad Falchuk? Was he with your mother when he arrived at the bottom?
I believe so.
Did he arrive sooner than she did?
I don't remember.
Well, I'd like to go back to the commotion and just let you continue and tell us, to the best of your memory, what happened. So you heard the commotion, and then what happened?
And then we continued to ski down, and we got to where we were eating lunch. We started to take off our gear and then sat down. And then shortly after, my mother, Brad Falchuk, my brother, I can't remember if my stepbrother was there or not, but everybody else followed in after I had arrived.
And who is everybody else?
To the best of my ability, I'm pretty sure it would have been my mother, my little brother Moses, Brad Falchuk. I would say one or two more instructors, and my stepbrother, BF.
Okay, do you recall which ski instructors were there?
Again, I remember Carrie, my instructor, Preston, who skied with BF and IF, Eric, and I believe that there was one more female instructor, but I can't fully recall.
Okay, do you recall anyone else besides the people you've mentioned at the side of the commotion?
No.
We're on 27. So when you're at having lunch, was the ski collision discussed at lunch?
Yes.
And what do you recall about that discussion?
My mom was explaining what had happened, saying that a man ran into her back and they both went down. And she was in a state of shock. And she decided after that she was not going to ski for the rest of the day, which she never does. She always stays on. But she decided to get off because she was in shock and she was in a bit of pain. Off the mountain.
Okay, do you recall anything else?
I recall getting back onto the mountain for a couple more runs and skiing with Carrie.
Anyone else?
I don't remember. Maybe my stepsister?
Do you recall skiing with
I
Moses?
I don't remember.
Okay, were you concerned about your mother at the time?
Yes.
What was your concern?
Well, and she had some sort of pain. I can't remember what, but she was in a little bit of pain, and I remember that's why she went to the spa to get a massage.
Did you discuss the ski collision with anyone after you left lunch?
I think that my step-siblings and my brother and we talked about it because my brother was closer to the collision, and he had also said that he skied into her back, and they, both went down together.
This is Moses. Can you tell us more specifically what Moses said?
Well, Moses was kind of telling us what had happened. I don't know if he for sure saw it, but I know that he was with people that saw it, and so they had told him what had happened and that it was what he said.
He said that my mom got hit in the back. Oh, what did he say again?
He said that my mom got hit in the back and their leg, they both went down together after somebody had skied into her back.
We are on 30. Okay, when you finished skiing, did you discuss the ski collision?
Yes.
With whom?
I believe we talked about it at dinner and after. I was checking in with my mom to make sure that she was okay.
And what did you discuss?
I asked her how she was doing, how she was feeling. She said she was in pain. Again, I don't remember where exactly, but she did say that she was in pain. She had gotten a massage, I believe. So this was around dinner time, and we had just kind of gone over what had happened.
Did she say anything about my client, Terry Sanderson?
She had earlier in the day, not immediately after, but after 5 minutes after we all met at lunch, she said that he had skied into her back, and she called him an a-hole who had skied into her back.
Anything else you can recall?
I remember she was very frantic about it, so she probably said something along the lines of that, but that would be all that I remember to the best of my ability.
31. Okay, when you discussed it with your mother and you said she was frantic, what do you mean by that?
She was in a state of shock. She was very upset, and she was in pain.
Since that collision, have you seen your mother in that state of shock like that since that?
No, not like that.
So you just
Yes, we were in a hotel.
the next day, do you recall what you did?
I believe we skied in the morning. I can't remember if we had left that day or not. The next day, I don't really remember much.
33. And do you recall how many ski instructors were with you at the time of the collision when you started skiing again?
I believe either 3 or 4.
And one was Carrie?
Yes.
And one was Eric Christensen?
Yes.
Was another one Preston?
Yes.
Was there anyone else that you recall?
I believe that there was one more person, but I can't be too sure about that.
Okay. Did anyone tell you they had seen the collision?
I don't think so, no.
Other than your mother?
No.
35. Okay, earlier I think that you said Moses and said other people had definitely seen the collision. Do you recall saying something like that?
I don't think that I said that.
What do you recall Moses saying?
Or not, saw the actual collision, but I know that he saw my mom on the floor.
I believe I said that he saw my. Let's see. Oh, that's you. In our collision, you skied down to the bottom of Bandana Run, correct?
Yes, but again, I personally didn't see the collision.
Okay, but you heard this commotion.
Yes.
Did someone say to you ski down to the bottom of the hill after the commotion?
No, we did not think anything of it. We continued to ski down. I don't even know if we stopped.
The we includes Carrie Oaks?
Yes.
Did anyone ask you to wait by the side of the hill after the commotion?
No, I don't remember that I don't know.
That you recall? Do you recall seeing anyone going to help your mother after the commotion?
I, again, did not see the aftermath. I had continued to ski down, but I believe that people did help her.
And what makes you believe that?
Because I assumed that she would have needed help up, and she was close to her boyfriend Brad, who is now her husband at the time, and both my brother's ski instructors and I believe BF's ski instructor. So I'm assuming that they would have helped her.
But Carrie Oaks stayed with you down to the bottom of stayed with you down the bottom of the hill?
Yes.
What about Eric Christensen? Do you recall what he was doing after the...
I believe that he was with my brother, who was near my mom. So he was near the collision.
Okay, and do you recall which side of the hill you were on? Let's talk about skiers left and right. That means that if you're skiing downhill, the left would be the skier facing downhill to their left, and the same on the right. Do you know which side of the hill you were on ski?
I don't remember.
Okay, do you think you might have been in the middle of the hill, or the side, or near the edge of the run, Bandana?
I don't remember.
39. Can you be sure exactly that Carrie Oaks didn't stop and help your mom after the collision, or do you remember that at all?
I don't remember. I think that we were further down because I know that we got to lunch first, so I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Do you recall before the commotion on Bandana Run saying something to the effect people in your group, like IF or BF, say something like that?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just going to show you something here real quick. Do you recognize the person on the left there?
That's Carrie.
That's Carrie Oakes,
Yes.
42. So Carrie Oakes was recently deposed, Apple, and she actually has specific memories of being on the scene of the collision. Would you defer to her testimony of specific memories rather than sort of your vague memory that she has with you?
Yes, I could have easily been with another instructor. I believe IF had an instructor.
Lawrence, I think we have a picture of Eric Kenhe, which has a picture of him on the cover of it. He looks a little older than he did.
Oh, isn't he the one? Oh my God, I remember him so well. He was the best. Oh my God, he was the best. He would give us candies and he would tell us. Yes, that's Eric.
Would you say he was under 50 years old?
I don't remember. I never really skied with him, so I never really saw his face. That's the end of it, Judge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Your Honor, both Moses and Apple were ready, willing, and able to testify in person on Monday morning.
Objection. Why don't we address that after I excuse the jury? Okay. I'm going to excuse you now until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I will recess. Please do not discuss this case with anyone, including other jurors. Please do not attempt to learn anything about the case outside of the courtroom, including from other jurors. Please avoid radio, TV, internet, and newspaper reports on this case. Please keep an open mind throughout the presentation of the evidence. And finally, please do not form or express an opinion on the case until such time as it is finally submitted to you for deliberations. Have a good evening. Okay, Mr. Owens, what was it that you wanted to put on the record?
I would always prefer live testimony to reading transcripts, but the kids were not available. Monday morning, given multiple assurances that I could do so, and I was not able to do so.
The multiple assurances were, if we're done, and we intended to be done. It sounds like some kind of a statement that we didn't do something we're supposed to do. And they took almost as much
live. You still can call them live. But I understand that you wanted to put that on the record, so
They
thank you.
became unavailable.
All right. So we're going to take a short recess, maybe 5 minutes, and come back and work on jury instructions. Is that right? Okay. Just take a quick bathroom break, and we'll be right back, and hopefully we'll wrap it up by 1:30.
What time would you like everybody here?
8:45, be ready to go, because once all the jurors are assembled, we can start.
Perfect. There you go.
Defendant, no. Plaintiff's objections to Defendant Paltrow's non-stipulated jury instructions. The nature of the case we already resolved on page 4.
Just give us a minute, we're trying to find our.
Okay, sure.
Council has an extra copy, because we've had so many different versions. Is there,
I'm working off the one that was filed.
okay.
Your filing, which is your objection.
Do you have the filing date, Your Honor?
It is, I can give you the docket number.
Yeah, that would be good, the docket number is even better.
Plaintiff's objections is docket number 973. Are you with me on the defense side?
Yeah, are we looking at our document or their document?
Looking at their document because it contains their written objection.
Got it.
So starting on, I'm on page 6, defendant's instruction number 9. Mr. Bueller, are you with me?
Not yet, Your Honor, I'm waiting for
Okay.
it to load. $973, Your Honor? Yep. What page?
Not, it's 7, page number 6, fault defined. So this is the fault definition. Is there any reason why we don't just use the fault jury instruction from the model Utah jury instructions? I see that, I guess both of you started with that, but why not stick with it? Mr. Egan?
Believe it or not, we're still trying to pull this document up.
Okay, all right.
Sorry,
I'm looking at CV 201 on the Model Utah Jury Instruction, second edition.
Your Honor, we have it, and your question was, why not use the model
Right.
instruction?
Why not stick with CV 201?
I think, if I'm recalling this correctly, and it's been a bit, we were thinking that the model instruction doesn't incorporate the counterclaim, so we wanted to just make But that's what I recall off the top of my head, Your Honor. So if I'm remembering correctly, it was kind of that second sentence where we say you must also decide whether Gwyneth Paltrow is harmed and
And there's also an objection to adding the word skiing in the second paragraph, just negligence rather than negligent skiing, because I think their claim is a little broader than just negligent skiing.
I see, because of the post-collision claim.
Right. I mean, I suppose loosely it's skiing because it's part of the skier code of conduct.
Right, yeah.
What to do after an accident, but.
Right, yeah, to me, I guess that's, I don't know that makes a huge difference to the jury. If they see skiing, I think they'll understand that it's the whole.
Wrongful act or failure to act alleged in this case is negligence.
Your Honor,
Sure.
we think just the generic negligence is used in all sorts of things, from skiing to autos to.
Yeah, you've got that in your brief, in your objection.
Sure, I mean, I don't.
So
Can you still argue what you need to argue?
Yes, I can. Well, this goes to a little bit of trial strategy. Is plaintiff resting? This will help me argue this very issue.
They haven't rested yet because you haven't finished your cross of their client.
So, sorry if I don't know this, but if I say I'm done with my cross, I'm going to call Terry. So if I agree to give up my cross of Terry, they are agreeing to rest first thing in the morning?
This is not what
This is
we're
not-
arguing
we're
about
not
right here.
arguing.
We're talking about jury instruction.
I actually, this affects my, first of all, I'm entitled to know if they're resting. The judge ruled, Your Honor ruled, that we would know each day's lineup the following day. I think they benefit from just having. And I want them to rest.
Well, if you'll decide whether you're done questioning Mr. Sanderson.
I hereby decide.
Pardon?
I hereby decide that I am
Okay.
done.
So do you have any more evidence to put on?
Well, come up with whether we are done and going to put anything
Okay.
else on or not. But I mean, we're here. To
I
talk
mean, as
about
I understood it, that was the only.
That's what I understand too. But
Okay.
we've got two.
Can one of you
juries
step
left.
out and verify that while we continue?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Here's
So would you
why-
like to come back to this one then after you get that answer?
Yes, I intend to file a motion for directed verdict on the issue of post-collision negligence. Depends how much work we have tonight.
Okay, all right. Well, as to this, okay. If it ends up that it's only the before and to the collision that's at issue, then you can certainly argue that to the jury.
Okay, if our motion's granted, I would want that tweaked because I don't want them to be confused that there's a post-collision issue. It's only the skiing.
Sure, if there's a directed verdict on the post-collision issue, I think there should be some clarification to
Thank
the
you.
Yeah,
jury.
and we would agree if our directed verdict went
Sure.
too.
Okay, so in the meantime, then, that's the instruction as it will stand. And if the landscape changes, you can certainly ask for an additional instruction or a modification.
Okay.
Turning then to defendant's instruction 12 on allocation of fault. Is this also, Mr. Egan, in order to, well, you've already come to an agreement, it says here, so that one's okayed, right?
Yeah, it looks like that's
Number
correct.
12. Number 13, inherent risk of skiing. I think you've already, well, you would like an inherent risk of skiing instruction, and the plaintiffs don't want an inherent risk of skiing instruction. Is that right, Mr. Bueller?
Correct.
For the reasons stated. Could you just tell me again why it is that you believe you should have one? And have you evaluated the, wasn't there a case that had 3 factors in it somewhere on whether was it Dutton, that whether a statute creates, whether a statute should be used? In other words, it talks about the protected class that's designed to protect.
Yeah, I do recall looking at that, Your Honor. I also am struggling to remember the particular name.
That might have been, I think it was in the
Donovan.
motions in limine, if I'm not mistaken.
That may be correct. And Donovan, I believe, is it didn't go into a significant analysis of that because it decided not to. The court decided it didn't need to rule on that point, if I'm remembering.
I have Donovan. Can I read one sentence from it, Your Honor?
Sure.
To be clear, we do not establish a categorical rule that an inadvertent fall by itself can never establish negligence. And we overturn RICI, R-I-C-C-I, to the extent that it established such a rule. I don't know if that's helpful, but the way my mind works is that means falls can occur despite appropriate care, and that's obvious.
Okay, I know where that's coming from. I actually marked that here, so. Anything else you want to add to your counter to the objection?
Yes, it is the law. I mean, it doesn't say, when it says you are assuming the risk of collision with other skiers, that is a legislative finding. That's not unique to ski resorts. I think it's just a statement of law. And skiing has inherent risks.
Okay. Anything else on that one? I'm gonna take that under advisement.
I'm gonna look for one other thing.
Okay.
Should we give them an update?
Yeah, an update, Your Honor, and I understand that as I stepped out to make the phone call, the defense said they
Okay, so
Rest.
so the plaintiff at this point is resting, and we can certainly do it officially in front of the jury so that they can see that you're resting, but does that resolve your issues, Mr. Owens, going forward?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
In case it's helpful, and you may have already beat me to this, but it looks like Colosimo was the case.
That they were citing.
Yes. So, yeah, sounds like you beat me to it.
Yeah, and I read what they were citing as well, and I'll continue to consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Ruling.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had the.
didn't even notice that
Thank
your name
you.
was
I
on
think
it.
I had the case in case it came back. Yeah.
All right, I found the inherent risks of skiing statute 78B 402(1). It does say inherent risk of skiing, meaning the dangers or conditions that are an integral part of the sport of recreational, competitive, or professional skiing include, and then it lists a number of things, and one of them under subsection F, collisions with other skiers. That is a legislative
Can you give us a citing?
finding. 78B4402. Your Honor, but changing weather conditions are not part of our case. Variations in terrain are not part of our case. So I went straight to F.
And then how would you respond to that same statute that says that definition of inherent risk of skiing is as used in this part?
Yes.
How do you look at that? It seems as though they're defining the term for this statute.
Of the section is to protect ski resorts, but it doesn't say anywhere like this does not provide any defenses for skiers, and so the wording works with skiers and skiers.
If I don't approve this requested instruction, it doesn't mean that you can't argue that. Risks of skiing, and you can talk about what those are, and you can, as they're tethered to the facts of this case. That's fair game. It's fair game.
I appreciate it. They just won't know it's the law. It is true, and it should come. The law should come from the court.
Correct. And that's my decision. Does the statutory definition of inherent risk of skiing contained in 78B4402, does that apply to a skier-on-skier collision liability? Mr. Bueller?
Oh, just if the court changes its mind or
I haven't
considers.
made a mind.
Yeah, we would like another opportunity to discuss it, but it doesn't have to be done tonight.
Well, I need to know now what your arguments are so I can fully evaluate this.
We would say, Your Honor, it does not apply to skier on skier. That the main thrust of this, as defense concedes, is to indemnify ski resorts for accidents that take place upon their mountains, and not for skier on skier liability. That's always going to be available.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll take that one under advisement, number 13. Next, number 14. This is the one I was talking about earlier. Why not use the
Safety rule?
Yeah, the violation of safety law, CV 212. Do you have that handy? The standard Utah jury instruction whenever there's an allegation of an ordinance or a law, a legislative enactment that creates a duty or is a safety law.
We're fine with that, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I had it and then I lost it. Can you give me the number one more time?
CV 212.
212.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's under the negligence.
Yeah, thank you. We have it now.
And then you take the actual quote from the ordinance and put it in there, the language from the ordinance itself.
we might have it as an exhibit, we can provide that.
Could you email that to my clerk?
Well, they've rested, so we shouldn't be doing new things that haven't come into evidence.
There was a witness that referenced the ordinance.
Right. I'm not sure.
And this is law.
But the document is a safety law. I don't know that any witness so testified.
Yeah. I believe Walker did, and I believe it came up with at least one other witness that I recall. I don't recall which one specifically right now.
I don't believe
So
Bogger
it's,
did.
It's in Plaintiff's Exhibit 38.
What's plaintiff's exhibit 30?
That was not admitted, correct?
Was that one admitted?
The one they.
Clerk's records indicate it was admitted.
Okay.
I can look back at my notes.
33 and 39 was excluded, but 38 was admitted.
So it wouldn't be appropriate, I don't think, to give the whole ordinance hand it to the jury, or maybe it is, but this is the place where that law should lie. And there was a witness that referenced the ordinance.
So referencing is not the same as, like, this is a safety law.
Well, I'll have to see the ordinance, but if it, is this basically it? Skiers have a duty to avoid reckless or negligent skiing? Okay.
The witness, Paul Bogger mentions it.
I don't think he mentioned it specifically, but in our objections, I believe we have quoted the ordinance in case that's helpful on page 7.
Okay, I think I understand arguments on that. I'll take it under.
Can I mention one other thing? There's been no, and this will be the subject of a directed verdict now that we know they're closed.